welcome everybody. This is a unique experience. I would say a three-way hybrid event. Bit of a first because we're actually working with BCS Staffordshire. So hello BCS Staffordshire. And we're of course online as well. So hello online, welcome. And we're also being hosted by Shrewsbury College, which we're very, very grateful for. That is, so the BCS Shropshire branch are here at Shrewsbury College. Thank you, Kirsten, for all your hard work enabling that. And it is very fitting because BCS, you know, young folks, young students, of which there are a large number of young students here tonight, it's very important to the future of IT. So, and it's very much part of BCS's mission to encourage students. And what we'll be hearing about tonight with RITTech is very much a part of that journey. So, so it's going to be very exciting. And also just incorporated into it is the very topical issue of AI ethics, which no doubt we could talk about all night. It's so important, but we won't, so don't worry. But I'm sure there'll be some very pertinent questions. And later on here at BCS Shropshire, store up your questions and we'll have an interesting little debate before our sausage rolls. Sorry, folks online, you can't have our sausage rolls, but there you go. So we're gonna start off with a fantastic talk from Jared, and then we're going to be going across to staffs where we're going to hear for a little bit more core material about RITTech by BCS staffer, and also another person's journey about RITTech called Craig. And so then we're going to keep the questions till after all the talks. So that will be around about 8 o'clock, and we'll be taking all the questions, be it face-to-face, online, etc., to enhance efficiency. And then we'll have closing comments about 8:20. And then we'll come back to the local branches for our sort of face-to-face sort of networking debates, etc. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to our event tonight, Jared Cohen. Thank you, Jared.
Right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jared Cowan. I am the Early Careers Advocate for the BCS Shropshire branch. And today I'll be talking about my journey, having done a level 4 apprenticeship with the BCS and achieving the RITTech-accreditation at the end of that. So I'll do a bit of a welcome and introduction of myself. We'll touch on what is RITTech and look to understand it. We'll take a brief pause and then speak about AI ethics, and then we'll come back and tie in AI ethics with RITTech and the standards at which the BCS expects us to work towards. And then we will have a Q&A after the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent branch session. So a little bit about me. About 4 years ago, I started my career in IT. I was a student at Telford College here in Shropshire on a level 3 course and looked to do a level 4 apprenticeship, obviously when I came to the end of my 2-year course. So I started at a local company called Creanova Limited here in Shrewsbury. I started August 2021, and then the actual start date of my apprenticeship was January 2022. And that was level 4, provided by the BCS, and the endpoint assessment also provided by the BCS. So that was a 18-month program where you are asked to put together a portfolio of various coding projects, all up to the SFIA framework that the BCS provides. So I believe level 3 was the framework I had to work towards. And as we'll touch on a little bit later, that is one of the ways you can get accredited with RITTech. So by June 2023, I had done my endpoint assessment, and I got an email alongside my sort of endpoint, what would you call it, the meeting or the interview you have. And they asked if I wanted to opt in for RITTech. And I thought, what is RITTech? They provided it for free, so I thought it's free. Let's have a look at what this is. So it's the Register of IT Technicians. So once you are accredited, it's valid for 3 years, and your name is put on a public register. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So between January 2022 and September 2023, I did my level 4 apprenticeship, and at the end achieved RITTech accreditation. As I'm sure you've probably noticed, my endpoint assessment was around June 2023. GPT released October 2022, and very much the messaging was myself as a software developer would be out of a job within the next year. 4 years on, or 3 years on from that, I'm still standing here as a software developer. So fret not, anyone who's looking to get into the industry. So off the back of that, the theme of tonight, we'll be talking about AI and AI ethics, and how important fundamental skills, technical skills, are still just as important as they've ever been. Right, so without further ado, let's talk about RITTech. So earlier I said it stands for the Register of IT Technicians, and it's just a way that you can benchmark your skills and prove your expertise within the tech industry. So with you becoming accredited and you go on the public register, it shows that you're competent up to a certain level. So it's a way to prove to prospective employers, current employers, that you know what you're doing and that you are indeed qualified for the job, as well as an ethical IT professional, as it ties in with the BCS's code of conduct. So, for example, the RITTech accreditation I have is the SFIA framework level 3. So that's skills for the information age. If you've heard of chartered status that most BCS members have, that I believe is level 5. So there is a mid-level of RITTech called advanced RITTech. It's at level 4. So it's part of that pathway into getting your chartered status as an IT professional. So there are 3 ways in which you can achieve the RITTech accreditation. You've got the experiential route. So this is evidencing your competencies through physical evidence in what you do in your day-to-day. So in your application, you'll give written examples and an account of what you do in your day-to-day that matches a certain level. The accredited qualification route, so that is the one I was on because I was doing a level 4 apprenticeship with the BCS. There are plenty of courses available that currently fall into that category. So we'll share that link with everyone a little bit later on. So if you are thinking of doing any of those courses, that is your ticket to getting accreditation with RITTech and the BCS. And then the third one is the industry route. So it's a little less in terms of the quantity of courses that you can use to certify yourself. So that's all approved qualifications via an industry program. So as you can see, I've listed this Accenture, TA&C Academy for a technical architect and a consultant. But I've heard they are still in development and there's plenty more to come. Right, so we'll pause it there and we'll get into the heavy topic of tonight, and that is AI ethics. So we all know about this thing called AI, and we know that it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Most of the time it's impressive, and other times it's frighteningly impressive. So we're living in an age where it has, well, it's started to become more commoditized. So if you think of smaller models now cost less per token, and you've got open source models that can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And as time goes on, we'll begin to find that these AI systems will start making decisions that will directly impact us. So, for example, loan approvals or healthcare diagnoses and hiring processes, all of this is already starting to become streamlined with AI. And as various reports will tell you on the internet, it is a bit of an ethical issue, because not only can these models be biased, but when they are biased, they can deny opportunities that otherwise a human would have been able to provide. So things like a loan approval, if the data is not right, it won't make the right decision. So it's not just a simple error. It denies opportunities if it hasn't been set up in an ethical way. And as we all know, they're only as good as the data that they're trained on. And likewise, these systems are only as ethical as the people who build them. I'll look at a couple of case studies that I've got off of the incident database.ai. So the first one, just to touch base on where these models can really go wrong. AI enhanced phishing. So between July and November of this year, there was a large-scale phishing campaign impersonating services in Australia and Centrelink, so government agencies. The malicious users built a model to generate more than 270,000 fraudulent emails targeting people in the public sector and vulnerable Australians. So really, phishing is not a new issue, but AI-enhanced phishing is now a reality. So we know these LLMs are great in that it can generate text and it can be very creative and persuasive in its answer. With an unethical person behind the wheel, it can be quite catastrophic to those who don't know better. Another example, incorrect chatbot finance guidance. So this is more recent, in November last month. So the company did tests on Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Meta, you name it, all of them, and it found that if you ask it questions about financial guidance, so HMRC related questions, or how do you invest and investment limits in ISAs and whatnot, just because it was trained on the internet doesn't mean everything on the internet was true. So what you're finding is less educated people are asking these models questions and they're getting the wrong answer and taking action on a false answer, which arguably this is where a guardrail should come in, and the AI model should say, I cannot help you with this. However, as we know, GPT loves to keep the user happy and will tell you what you want to hear. Another interesting one that I thought I'd bring up, the AI agent Claude. So I'm a software developer, and Claude is the AI coding agent. I've used it a little bit and I've not been impressed, but that was about 2 years ago, so I don't know if it's substantially gotten better. But attackers managed to manipulate the Claude code model and asked it to act as a penetration test orchestrator and agent. So you gave the model a role. It's got the context of, various code bases. And what that model ended up doing was stealing private data from all those targeted entities. I'm not too sure on the exact number, but they basically got all the data they needed in order to try and fish out data within the code base of their users. But that, I believe, has been fixed by an additional guardrail being added into Claude. So it no longer, I think, takes actions on a malicious user's behalf. But yeah, these are issues that didn't exist prior to AI, because we didn't have the sort of speed benefit and the ability to generate text at such a fast pace. And it's an example of where these systems can go wrong, even if they were built by ethical people. So Claude, for example, that would be software developers who just want to help others. It was exposed, and it seems that no amount of guardrails can prevent malicious users from talking to these chatbots. So that being said, we know there are AI systems out there, but not all of them are created equal. So a recent MIT project listed that more than 80% of AI projects don't actually reach production. So they stay in a co-pilot program and they don't go any further as the results are not as they intended. So many organizations are just looking to quickly connect their data to a GPT wrapper, and they just hope for the best. And what they're realizing is that it's not as simple as that. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. However, the key issue with that is they're not really taking data into consideration. So if you wouldn't trust an intern with your company data, why would you trust an external AI model? And this is something that I'll touch on a little bit later around data and how good a model is based on its data. Why this happens? So we know there are limitations to these LLMs. They aren't perfect, but they are certainly getting there and getting better as time goes on. But simply pointing data at a language model isn't a strategy. LLMs are not actually calculators. So in terms of reasoning, it's not really reasoning how you think it is. They do one thing, and that is predict the next word. So token by token, it reads, obviously, the context you've given it, and all it does is predict the next word based on all the various transformer layers and algorithms have been trained on. So you can see why that easily leads to incorrect outputs. I don't know if you know the joke of how many R's are there in strawberry. It was only after GPT-4 was able to tell you how many R's there were. But another thing that this report highlighted is that it seems to be the issues come in with implementation, when it's structured data. So we know these models work well on unstructured data. They do a really good job at taking bodies of text, analyzing them and outputting a pattern. But when it comes to businesses and domain-specific projects, this is structured data. Everything has a distinct relationship and has been set up in a certain way. And it's trying to get the model to behave in that way where the challenges are coming up. I've got another bit as well. So the last bit I want to highlight is around the data readiness. So even before generative AI was a thing in 2019, stat was published that 87% of data science projects failed simply because the business data was not suitable for AI implementation. And that is still true today. It's not a simple case of plugging in a big database to one of these massive models with a large context window and hoping it'll predict patterns. You need the human in the loop in order to tidy that data up and get the model reading only the data that's relevant for its use case and not just a one-size-fits-all situation. So this is where I'll come back to the foundations that still matter. So as I said earlier, during my 18-month apprenticeship, I had a list of duties and knowledge, skills, and behaviors around software development. I've decided not to go through that extensive list because we could be here for an hour if I try and justify my existence in that regard. So I've got a little table that we'll look at a little bit later on. But yeah, I came to my endpoint assessment shortly after ChatGPT had gone mainstream. So it was a case of these knowledge, skills, and behaviors. You could plug it into GPT and it would format a paragraph as you wanted it. So the temptation was there to cheat. However, when you look at what it actually generated at the time, it wasn't as good as what I would have done with my actual experience at the company. But nonetheless, enough talking down about AI. So we know it can be useful. So I've put together a bit of a table on where it can be useful. But instead of sort of saying that my skills are now irrelevant, I have applied them in the new context. So if we look at the AI skills gap, and this is from a software developer's point of view. So if you aren't a a software developer like me, you can sort of think how AI has enhanced one process, but it's highlighted an issue later on in terms of what you still need to do as part of your job. So I'll just start from the top and I'll explain it. So things like routine coding and generating boilerplate code is brilliant at doing that as an LLM. So if you want to do something as basic as a calculator, it can spit it out in a couple of seconds, and it makes all the effort I put in secondary school feel like nothing, because it did what I had a couple of hours to do, it did in a couple of seconds. But it's really good at doing that. However, it doesn't mean to say that everything it spits out will be true. So the new skill gap that has opened up is reviewing, validating, and securing your AI-generated code. So we know these models hallucinate, and I don't think anyone would ever push hallucinated code into production without testing thoroughly. So I've linked that with a couple of the knowledge, skills, and behaviors I had to do around testing, and the knowledge on sort of secure code implementation. That remains as true as ever. So it may be great that I have a tool like GitHub Copilot where I can say, oh, I need to do X, Y, Z, and it does X, Y, but the way it's done Z is unsecure. I need to be able to pick that up as an IT professional. So the need for deep understanding of code is still there. It's just how you get to that point is a little bit quicker. But I'm sure if anyone is a software developer, sometimes when it generates code, you may as well have just written it yourself with how badly it gets it wrong. So testing and QA throughput. So AI, specifically tools like Claude and GitHub Copilot, are good at automating tests, telling you how to regression test, doing selection, fuzzing logic, you name it. However, now that it's commoditized, you as a software developer still have the job of designing the tests for these models. You are the one that still needs to evaluate them. You need to take a test-orientated approach. And something I've gotten into with what I've done at work is prompt engineering. So trying to prompt the model to behave in a way that's different from its design, which sometimes can be very easy to do. There's a website called, I think it's Gandalf.ai, where there's 8 levels, and the first level is asking the AI model to give you the password. Now, in the system prompt of the model, it's got a secret password. If you ask it something like, how do I spell the password? It'll just spit it out for you. And then as you go on to the later levels, it gets more and more intense. So then you sort of have to think your way around the guardrails. And that has become a new way of testing these AI systems, is that you may have something that takes in plain text input, but you need to see if you've involved function calling or tool calling, you need to be sure that it's not going to execute that based off of a malicious prompt that someone might put into your system. So that the same principles of testing your code, unit testing, and regression testing still stands true for models. The next item is data linking and transformation. So it's great at automating ETL, so extraction, transformation, and loading. It can do mapping and simple feature engineering. But the skill level that we need to have as professionals is data governance. We need to audit for bias, make sure that the data we're feeding to these models is preserving privacy. And we need to also take into account fairness of the data. So you don't want to put in data that's that's irrelevant, that the model is just sifted through and you've put it in just for the sake of putting it in. Design patterns and reuse. So as a developer, you sort of get through a list of features, and you think, oh, how do I need to go about building this? So if it's from the ground up, you'll 9 times out of 10 pick a design pattern. AI model is great at recommending an actual pattern, but it's your individual knowledge and experience of coding that will tell you otherwise. So maybe if it recommends a singleton pattern, you go, well, that's not really quite what I want. And you prompt it to say, give you an abstract factory. It'll get you halfway there, but your domain knowledge is what the model needs in order to get to that end point. So it's great as a starter, but it won't see you all the way through. So that is something that was heavily tested in my software languages part of the course. And I find I'm using it more now that AI is a tool in coding systems, for example. I'm using it more now than I ever thought I would, just because I need to fact check what the model gives me in those instances. But 9 times out of 10, you just end up writing it yourself. You pick the pattern and you carry on as you would. What has been great, so most software developers will agree, documentation is sometimes very difficult to put together if you don't have the time for it, or if it just feels a bit more of a chore than the actual enjoyment of the job. So it's really good at auto drafting documents. It can do commit messages with some of the latest updates I've seen on GitHub Copilot, and it can give user guides based on the code you feed it. So our job as technicians, really, you need to validate the accuracy of those documents. You need to maintain the living documentation. And then most importantly, you need to be able to communicate those AI limitations to stakeholders. So if the model is saying, oh, I reckon the software does this, this, and this, and you go, right, I would rather have that in a non-technical context or non-technical wording, what it outputs in that document, you need to understand it. It needs to be something you would stand by if you were talking to your non-technical audience. So that's also very important. And then the last 3, sorry, DevOps and deployments. So it's really good at putting together YAML files so you can automate your CI/CD pipelines, or I'm talking in an Azure context. If you use Bicep or anything, it can do infrastructure as code templates. Because that language never changes once the model's been trained on it, 9 times out of 10, you'll get a decent template. However, if we take a step back, that may be great, but if you were to roll out these models in your CI/CD pipeline, your job as a developer is to now monitor these models. So ensure the safe rollout of models. You need to manage the model lifecycle, so you can monitor things like model drift, rollback strategies, cost governance. So if you've put a new model out, but it's less accurate than what it was, how do you roll back and use a version that works a lot better and users can get on with their day? If you've deployed a new model that's no longer fit for purpose and you're overpaying for it, there might be a smaller model that you can now implement as part of your pipeline. It's your job as a technician to know all of that. And that is one of the things that is heavily tested as well in the apprenticeship. Feature ideation and UX insight. So it's good at producing prototypes. I don't know if anyone's used Gemini Canvas to generate some simple code interfaces. Quite impressive, but when you need it to actually do functional stuff, it kind of falls over a bit, but hopeful nonetheless. However, you can ask an AI bot to generate a UI, but you as the developer know your users, you know their workflow, you know how they work, and you understand what it means to be human. So you may be able to generate a quick sort of framework of a UI, and it can click buttons and navigate quite easily. But you as the human with the domain knowledge will know whether it's relevant or not. And then the last one, problem solving and debugging. I'm more against this one because I don't think, I know I struggle to read my own code sometimes. How a model gets through it, I'm not too sure. But when an AI suggests a fix, the developer's new mandate should be critical evaluation. So if you've written the code and you know how it works, and this model is reading through your debugging logs, and it's telling you where it thinks it's going wrong, and you're just following that pattern, you're actually offloading a lot of your own job to this model unnecessarily and unsafely, because again, it is an LLM and can hallucinate. So you don't want to be doing that. So that ties in with a lot of the best practice sort of knowledge, skills, and behaviors that I was tested on. And it was very important to remember when obviously the temptation comes out with these models and these tools that you can use to automate your job. But yeah, so in summary, I found these sort of duties and knowledge, skills, and behaviors that I learned in the apprenticeship to still be relevant, and it's still the key to building a reliable system. So what I want to touch on next is mapping the ethics to AI. So I'll quote the Microsoft Responsible AI Principles. So they are fairness. So that is treating all people fairly, as it says in the name. So you need to ask the question of how might an AI system allocate opportunities, resources, and information in ways that is fair to the humans who use it. So you've got different levels of intellect, different people of different abilities using your systems. If you've implemented an AI chatbot, for example, it needs to meet the people where they are essentially. It can't give you overly verbose and technical descriptions on things if you're a non-technical user. Reliability and safety. So the great thing about generative AI is that everyone brags about how well it copes on data or something it hasn't seen before. Not always true, and sometimes it can lead to some pretty drastic outcomes. So AI systems should perform reliably and safely. So when you implement a model, you need to ask the question of how well will the system function for different people across different conditions, different contexts, especially ones that it wasn't designed for. So this ties back to the whole prompt engineering thing. So if you've got a malicious user, is your model reliable enough to counteract that? And is it safe enough to not action anything that the user has asked of it to do? Privacy and security. So this is a big one in terms of data. So you need to respect privacy and ensure security of the data. So you need to, I think, apply the same principles as what you've done previously in more traditional senses, if not more now, and only give the model the data it really needs. And yeah. Inclusiveness is a big one. So you need to empower everyone, and your apps need to be designed to cater for all abilities, regardless of their backgrounds. And then the last one, which is quite important, is transparency. So AI systems should be understandable. So if someone comes to you and asks, why did the AI make this decision? You as the person who built it should be able to explain that as clear as day. And you wouldn't just expect AI to be biased and do its own thing. So on that note, I have prepared a bit of a demo. I'm calling it Responsible AI in a Christmas Context. So I've got a little model that will read bits of data or little features, and it'll tell you if the person is on Santa's naughty list or on his nice list. I've got 3 different data sets I'll show you, which I'll tie into the responsible AI principles shortly. So I just need to set it up on my screen quickly. So right, okay. So might need to zoom in a little bit, so give me 2 seconds. Oh, that's cut off again. Right. if everyone can see my screen, I am busy using a tool called the ML.NET Model Builder. So if any of you work in data science, you've probably written machine learning models in Python. I'm a C# developer and work with .NET, so I just didn't put the time in to learn Python because this package already existed. So what this lets you do is you feed a local model or machine learning model data, and it lets you build, I would say, traditional machine learning models that you can then later deploy up to Azure Machine Learning. But if I show you how that is done, we could be here for ages. So I'll just sort of go into detail about an unethical data set, and then we'll go into an ethical data set. So the context is this model, very biasedly, needs to pick if the person is naughty or nice. So the first set of data here I've got is literally a spreadsheet of about 30,000 rows with a person's name and whether they are naughty or nice. So immediately this can be seen as a very unethical data set. And another problem with the data set is that it's about 80% of the results are flagged up as nice and only about 20 odd is flagged up as naughty. However, if we apply this single data set, however unlikely, to Microsoft's responsible AI principles, we can see it violates fairness. So the model has become, or it will become, inherently biased. So it'll discriminate based on what I would say is an irrelevant feature. So the person's name, which, as you can imagine, is a proxy for identity. So it'll lead to an unfair outcome where, things based, so where names come from. So your demographic could be disproportionately labeled as something that they are not. It violates reliability and safety. So the prediction is essentially arbitrary. So it's not based on observable and relevant behavior. It's just a name. So it's a correlation between the name and naughty or nice. So the more it sees of my name as being naughty, it'll flag me up as naughty every time. It's not looking at anything else other than the name. So I was hoping to maybe prompt it, if anyone can see. So if I put my name in there, very biased result, I come back as nice. So top result, 69% chance of being nice, 31% chance of being naughty, and then various other bits. So all this has done is read my data, run a couple of algorithms through it, and it says, right, based on this person's name, run this algorithm against it, and if it gives me this result, I'll use that algorithm for the model. But that is just a simple data set of only the name. Now, what I have done is updated that data set with a couple more feature fields. My Excel spreadsheet's not showing on the screen. I'll just endeavor to explain it. So we need to control the data and remove the bias feature, which is the name. So you would think maybe to fix the model, I need to add more data. Not really, because if I've got 80% and 20% or 60% and 40%, on just a name alone, it's a very unreliable system. You may as well just toss a coin. So what you can do is replace the name column with behavioral data points that will enable you to define a relevant definition on what is naughty and what is nice. So the fields I've added would be age in years, total hours volunteered, number of toys shared in a year, have they been polite in public, and how many apologies have they made in the year. But also, without agreeing on a set standard on what is naughty and what is nice, the model won't know any better. So what I've done is given these values a range. So age in years, so this is the age of the kids who you want to predict as being naughty or nice. I've just set them all to 12 to 16. When you think about it, age also shouldn't be something you should make a decision on, because no one can really control their age. So it's explicitly discriminatory. So what I've done is made the age consistent for all the entries. So they're all aged between 2 and 16. So when the model learns from this data, it's going to see that age has no impact on the actual result. So the other features, for example, total volunteered hours. If they are naughty, it's between 0 and 30 hours. If they are deemed nice, it's between 25 to 85 hours. So let's say in a year, if they volunteer that much, we'll label them as nice. In terms of sharing a toy, 0 to 10 times for a naughty kid, 10 to 80 times for a really nice kid. And whether they've been polite in public, the lower range is 0 to 20, and then 25 to 75 for the nice kids. So here's our rule set. It's a clear distinction between who's naughty, who's nice. So if I were to consume this model now with the newly trained data, we'll start seeing a lot better results. So if I give someone's name, I'll give my own name. I'll say that I have volunteered, 78 hours this year. I've shared my toys 25 times, cleaned my room 28 times, so roughly once every 2 weeks. Had I been polite in public, I've given myself 62 times, and apologies made 9. So up for discussion, but I have put the more you apologize, the more naughty you are. So I'll be accountable for that if the model mislabels someone. So if I hit predict on this, I got a score of nice, and that would be because my volunteering hours are so high up. The number of toys shared is also in the upper range, and the amount of times I was polite in public ended up fitting into that narrative. So if I then said my hours are 0 and I didn't share any toys, I cleaned my room maybe 15 times in the last year. Was I polite in public? Let's say 50 times. Let's see if the result changes. So I've been polite in public. Right, there we go. So it now deemed me as naughty. So instead of it just having a random guess on whether it's seen my name or not in its data set and then assigning the relevant label, I've now given it behavioral features that it should be looking at instead of something that's completely discriminatory. And then just to test it out, if I were to make my age 16, it would make no difference in terms of the result. So I still got the same naughty result. Whether I was 95, so data it hasn't seen, it has no bearing because I've got behavioral features that I've properly labeled and ensured that I'm following a secure matrix of an agreed, I would say, standard. So if anyone came to me and asked, why is my model telling them that they are naughty, I can go to this matrix and say, well, if you've scored in between this and this, but maybe, you hadn't been so polite in public, but you apologize, fewer times than most, you'd be labeled as nice. But if you never apologized, you were never polite in public, I wouldn't be surprised if you were naughty. I've got quantifiable data that I can go and say to someone, right, here's the rules. You didn't meet them. My model predicted correctly. And here's how it reached its decision. So that ties into transparency. So even though this prediction is highly interpretable, if someone is labeled naughty, we can point directly to these features and explain to them, this is why you were labeled naughty, because, number of times you shared your toy was lower than most of the demographic. So that, on my part, as the engineer who built this, it would establish clear accountability and explainability of my model. Fairness, so it's now behaviorally neutral. So whether you give the person's name and age, it doesn't care. What it cares about are these main features. So it's the amount of hours volunteered, the amount of times you shared your toy, you name it. And also, because I was the one that defined the matrix that this model behaves on, the design has now become human-centric. So it doesn't care about the name, it doesn't care about the age, it cares about good behavior. So ultimately, what I deem as good behavior is how the model behaves. So within a few steps, you can see if you apply these ethical principles, even though AI is unpredictable, you can at least make it transparent and explainable. And that is one of the most important things about implementing AI, is that the people who build it need to be just as ethical as people who build normal traditional systems. But yeah, I will stop sharing there. And then if we can just go back to the slides, Kirsten. Right. I've got those. So common pitfalls, ethical blind spots. So as you can see, if you automate something without being accountable for it, that can be a blind spot and lead to a very biased and unethical model implementation. Data misuse and lack of concern. So volumes of data doesn't always mean accurate data. So you need to put in the time to read your data, be concerned about your data, and ensure that what you feed this model is indeed relevant to your use case. Over-reliance on opaque models. You shouldn't be using a model that is overly opaque. You should be able to explain how it got to its decision, especially if you were the one who built and designed the system. And human in the loop. So a lot of people are wanting to automate workflows and make things a lot better and more streamlined. Sometimes, specifically in a business context, that isn't always possible. You need to have human in the loop, especially if your system is making decisions that will impact real people. So it's very important that you can explain your model and enable it to have a human in the loop process. So before it reaches a decision, make sure at least one human has seen it, or the relevant human has seen it, and you can design a secure system. So I will just close here, and then we'll hand over to the Staffordshire branch. My closing message would be developers/engineers, embrace ethical responsibility. So if you are responsible in your learning and intentional about your career, embrace the ethical responsibility, because there will always be a space for you. Apprentices and newcomers, your training is future-proof, not outdated. Take it from me, who's 3 years in after having completed an apprenticeship, and I am still able to write code and work with AI models. For leaders in the industry, seek to invest in an ethical culture and not just technical capability. And that is where the BCS and RITTech come in, with everyone who's trained against the BCS's code of conduct and their various knowledge, skills, and behaviors. You can't go wrong with an ethical developer working on your system. But yeah, that'll be it for me. I do have two, there we go, sorry, wrong slide. 2 online courses for BCS members, so the Ethical IT Professional, as well as the Ethical AI Toolkit. So if any of you are looking to do something over the December holidays to try and understand how you can be more ethical in your AI implementations, you can use these links. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you, Jared. Round of applause, I think, for Jared. Thank you very much. I didn't spot it before, but there was a lovely Christmas tree you have there. Very Christmassy. And I just really hope that I'm in there somewhere in that database as being really, really nice. I don't know if I am, but there we go. So thanks very much for that. So as Ed mentioned, we're going to, as per the agenda, we're going to move on. And we've got a colleague here in the Stoke and Staffordshire branch, Craig Hannon, who's going to discuss and present his RITTech journey. Okay, so I'm gonna do the slides and share them. So let me just do that, and then we're going to adjust the camera wherever, Craig, you're going to stand. But ideally, if you can stand on over there, then I'll point the camera at you. Okay? You tell me where. So let me just get the sharing working. Yeah. Well, I just need to adjust the camera. So just give me a couple of seconds and I'll just adjust the camera.
Is it easier? I was going to say, is it easier if I step forward? But
no, wait, if I do that, oops, oh wait.
practiced and
Come round to you now.
there you
Hey,
go.
hang on.
Cool.
Too far.
I'll wait for you to
Back
get
a
back,
bit.
Charlie, and then when I nod my head, you hit it.
Yeah, back a bit. Where we go?
Oh,
Take stage left, stage right, isn't it?
yeah, need to cross on the floor.
Not right, is it? Okay. Done. Okay, how's that? Can the guys in Dropshire, can you see Craig okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes from a slightly different perspective than Jared. I'm going to be talking about my RITTech journey in terms of professional development and where it took me in my career in terms of CITP and things like that. Just to give you a bit, do you want me on, Charlie? Just a slide, sorry, it's my mistake there. So I'm a software engineer, currently a technical lead for a software consultancy. I've got around 20 years experience in IT from graduation. I hold RITTech and I've currently got CITP with BCS. I do quite a lot of volunteering in IT. I try to sort of spread my knowledge and things like that. So I do that through my BCS work, and also I'm a STEM ambassador. So I do work with sixth forms, and I've also been into primary, secondary schools, and done work in education in terms of like how software engineering can be a positive career. I think I've done a couple of young coder competitions as well, judging for that. So that's kind of who I am, just to give you a bit of a background. Try and move on to the next one, Charlie. So I suppose first off, it's just kind of why did I get involved in tech really more than anything? And there's a few smiles at the back there. So from a young age, I was quite fortunate in our house that we kind of grew up around technology. And the 80s to 90s, I feel, was like another wave of what's coming now in terms of AI. We had, seems like ancient now, but cassette decks to load our games. And it kind of brought that inquisitiveness out in me. And then we sort of like moved on to the console with cartridges, and we thought we were really posh because we got really quick boot times compared to them tapes where we were waiting for bootloaders if you were really posh. And then I went on to PCs, and I started to learn the internet as the primitive forms of the internet through the dreaded dial-up screen in Windows 98. I feel them years shaped me as an IT professional. And I can see that coming again now, like through Jared's talk there, where the internet was obviously a big wave in tech. We're now going to get towards the AI movement, and that's going to be another wave, and it's going to see massive innovation. But for me, that's what, when I look at my kids now, they grew up around tech. Everyone's got tech everywhere, and we take it for granted. I feel when I was younger, we took nothing for granted because it was all new to us. Like, we didn't see the internet. It's like, it made me laugh when I was watching Stranger Things, like, and they were talking about the internet, like, they were like, what's the internet? What's this? And that was in the 80s, So I feel now like it shaped me, and it built that layer of sort of inquisitiveness into me. And it was just something new, and it really appealed to me. So I feel like in early years as well, like I say, when I started to get onto the internet and start to use it, I learned a lot myself in terms of like programming languages and HTML, and understanding how IT systems fit together, which again, that's kind of shaped me all the way through my career, really. I've always had a good, strong CPD sort of ethic. Do you want to move us on, Charlie?
Yeah, of course.
So I suppose like that's me, and like obviously I'm mad on tech, can probably talk a lot about it. I went to school. I did my GCSEs. I got quite well at GCSEs. I think I got 9 A to C's. I then went to by the time I got to end of school, I thought I didn't really want to engage with A levels. I didn't really think they kind of suited me. I wanted to do something practical because I spent all of my, like I say, my younger years on the online sort of hacking out HTML pages. I didn't really feel me sitting and doing academic was really for me. So I did an ABCE, which is me and Charlie were having this conversation a couple of days ago. It was an advanced, it's like the old advanced GMVQ, I think. It's like an ABCE. It's an advanced
T level now, I suppose.
Yeah. I did that at South Cheshire, which is Cheshire College now. So, and then after that, that gave me enough UCAS points to go on to it was a BCS Internet Technologies degree at Salford, which I enjoyed. It was kind of right up my street. And then I did a Masters in Enterprise at Salford before moving into work. Like I say, I've sort of quite, in terms of my academic life, I always chose things that were hands-on. And I felt that suited me. That's why I didn't really want, like I said, I didn't want A levels for that reason. And I felt that would kind of suit me quite well. Let's move on, Charlie. So when I got to my working life, it's quite fortunate because I started off AstraZeneca and I had quite a nice job there. I worked with different marketing companies across the world, rolling out AstraZeneca, their kind of websites at the time across all the marketing companies. We also did a couple of projects which were classic ASP VB script style survey systems. Also worked on when doctors prescribe drugs, they're called ECMEs, they're like continuing medical education. I think you have to watch a video to prescribe it in some countries, so we worked on them as well. It was anything digital for AstraZeneca our department worked on, and I quite like that there. I then moved on. I did some work for a consultancy down south, and I was starting to branch out sort of to get more variety of experience in IT. I then moved on to a company which became part of British Gas, and I was a junior software engineer then, and then kind of built my way up into team lead and level positions. And following that, I kind of felt that the corporate world was a bit too political, let's say. So I moved across into another position, into a where I worked for a company that did ANPR cameras and PNC access for quite a large number of the UK police forces. And in that situation, I ended up into a technical solution architect position. So I was responsible for, solutionizing out different areas of the application through a transformation phase on a couple of their products. And then it led to where I am today, which is for a small software consultancy, which they're a niche consultancy, really work in the social housing sector. What we do is we go into these contractor companies or social housing companies and implement innovation and digital transformation through technology. We're a .NET consultancy, so we specialize in Microsoft Stack, which obviously now is a bit kind of standard, I suppose, in the corporate world. And I quite like that role because it's a consultancy role, so we're going in and advising on best practice, and we're trying to implement them best practices into these organisations. Do you want to move on, Charlie? I suppose just to give like a bit of my current position, like what it looks like and how I feel continuing professional development and RITTech helped me. And then I'll go on the later slides, I'll go through kind of where we am today. I feel that to do any area of my job, so like I say, .NET, we recently went through Spar apps and things like that. So then we were TypeScript, and then we obviously all of the effort around that. Spent probably most people have past 5 to 8 years securing all these apps. You know, app APIs and estates are growing. They're the biggest sort of attack vector now. Then there was the whole DevSecOps movement, which we kind of had to bring along and bring into our teams. And then we went through a period of doing the cloud native transformations on a number of our customers. And one of our customers in particular has all their own hardware, which is quite rare, I suppose. In the cloud sort of era now, people move into the cloud. So they had an on-prem Kubernetes cluster there, which is obviously quite, for their industry, is quite sort of unique. So there was a big learning curve around that. So I suppose what I'm trying to get to with this slide is the fact that all of these efforts to have a good approach to CPD through things like RITTech and things like that sets a framework out for good moving forward. And I feel like everyone in IT, it's a fast-paced environment, especially like I say with these movements and different waves. And I feel that having something like RITTech or CITP gives you a framework to give that credibility and trust, not just to your own organization, but from my point of view, to customers that I deal with. They understand that, you know, you've been externally verified and you're committed to providing the best in terms of your continuous professional development. But move on, Charlie. So that's kind of, I suppose, about me. So then, obviously, I chose RITTech for that reason, really. In my early career, I feel it's important that you have a good foundation to move up into the upper sort of echelons of the CI Advanced RITTech and then CITP. And that framework is kind of like muscle memory in the end, because, like, you know, if you do CPD, you've got your CPD logs, you know, in terms of your BCS, and then it kind of sets that good muscle memory there. And I kind of take on board the actual website. It's quite what it says is quite you know, reflective of that. Go next, Charlie. So, like I say, I suppose why I feel it mattered to me and why it matters more generally, really, is it's setting commitment to professionalism for yourself. And like I say, that external validity of that kind of helps others. I was saying to Charlie that I know there's obviously different perspectives on this, but I kind of put that I'm CITP on the bottom of my emails, because then I feel that, you know, customers that I'm engaging with, suppliers that I'm engaging with, they understand that you've got that level of external verification of your skills and your sort of career history. And like I say, it's got that standards and the muscle memory it brings on. And that, like I've said again and said 3 or 4 times, it gives you a good sort of baseline for progressing upwards into CITP and advanced RITTech. And like I put at the bottom there, it's externally verifiable, and I feel that adds to the credibility and trust to other people. You want to pick us on, Charlie? I suppose the route I took is my degree wasn't accredited with BCS, so I had to come in through a different route than Jared did. I I went through the experiential route. So basically, I had to evidence against the RITTech standard, and then I think I submitted my CV and then gave a bit of. I think it's based off STAR now, but I think the BCS guy is going to go through that, isn't he?
We'll cover the application process, the current application process. Yeah.
So you obviously submit that. Then you go through the verification process. So that's the route I took, which I think Salford did, and they still do BCS accredited degrees. So obviously, if you're at that stage, that's something that maybe you bear in mind if you moving forward, because it does take a bit of the pain away from the process, I suppose. Do you want to move on, Charlie?
Yeah.
I suppose to kind of move on from that, why I think it's how I think it's helped me. It's given me that, like I said before, that benchmark to provide some structure around what we can do, what I can do, what I've done. So it helped me with my log keeping and things like that, because all of that needs to be there. I had a early recognition and validation of my skills and my history, and it also gives you that different perspective that for a technical person like me, sometimes isn't always the first thing that you go towards, because like having a wider perspective instead of just a specific engineering perspective that helps with, and that definitely did help me early in my career, because I had a massive tendency to go too deep instead of forming an overall round opinion, which obviously is required early. Try to move on, Charlie. Okay, so for me, like I said to you, I got RITTech early in my career, and I feel that was useful for me. And then I came to the time where I built enough experience and enough skills to step up into CITP. I think the time for me was around 5 to 6 years from getting RITTech to getting CITP. RITTech definitely did set me a good foundation, and it emphasized again like my passion for like learning and finding new things, and it did help with the CITP process, because I feel like there's a lot of similarities. Like you do, obviously the level of what you actually put into a CITP application and an RITTech one are slightly different, but it gives you that same framework to carry across, because I think both of them use STAR as well. So it's like it's relative and relatable, and it did help me. So I'm pleased I did both that way, actually, to be honest. Yeah, so that's that. So I think that's it, Charlie. Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, Craig. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. So as we said, any questions you've got, either drop them in the chat or either drop them in the chat or we'll ask them separately. I just want to check. Is Elliot online? Elliot, are you?
Hi, Charlie. I'm here.
Do you want to just, if you wish, feel free to turn your camera on. Elliot is the current chair of our BCS Council, and Elliot very kindly, I twisted Elliot's arm when we met at the last council meeting, and I said, "Hi, Elliot. Can you?" Would you mind coming along and just speaking 5 minutes? So he's not quite on the agenda because I didn't know if I could twist his arm or not. But hopefully he can just say hello and give us your view, Elliot, as to what you think really in terms of RITTech and CITP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. It didn't require that much twisting. I'm very happy to be here. It's great to see what's going on in the branch side as well. It's been very interesting so far to listen to the presentations. As Charlie said, I'm chair of council, but I'm also RITTech registered as well. And these conversations we're having about AI, are really linked to what we're trying to look at council and the institute as a whole, which is trying to improve our standards of professionalism. And AI is one of those things that's really going to challenge that in the IT profession moving forwards. And certifications like RITTech are going to be what sets the baseline for standards moving forward, whether that's how we operate as employers or how we operate as employees. It's going to be one of those things that I think is going to be quite relevant, and I'm hoping the Institute makes more use of it moving forwards. For me, I started with RITTech when I started off in consulting quite a few years ago now, and my degree was in computer science from Reading, and it was a BCS certified degree, and it was sort of the kind of the next pillar really for me to move forward in my BCS life cycle. So I joined then, and I went through the processes, and actually, as you'll hear about soon, it's quite a good thing to go to. As a professional, it's good to think about what you've achieved and how it aligns to the different standards. And I work in consulting, as I said, and what we often do is help clients make decisions about many different things, and one of them at the moment is AI. And so to be able to say to a client, well, actually, I sit against these different standards, I'm accredited by the BCS, it adds that extra level of trust, but also demonstrates my experience is validated. It's not just me saying it, it's been checked by someone else. I am actually, I'm all right to talk about these sort of things. And from my perspective as well, it's the natural precursor to you going through and doing your CITP or chartered side as well. It's something we've been talking a lot about at the BCS Council level, and it's something that I think, as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing more and more as an institute. But what you really get out of it, and what I've got out of it, is that credibility and structure side. And in a world where we're needing that a lot more, is something I really recommend you all to consider putting yourself forward for. How's that, Charlie? Anything else you want me to talk about?
No, fabulous. That's really kind. Thank you, because I think that gives us a really good perspective from a consulting side as well about the importance of registration and that, you say, that trust and credibility. Thank you. I suppose just one other thing. Do you want to mention the council elections quickly and get any
Yes.
Here? Yeah.
Yes, good. So we have the nominations open at the moment for BCS Council. They close next Tuesday, off my head. Council is our sort of advisory body of the Institute. It advises trustee board, and it represents members from the different parts of our Institute, whether that's in specialist groups, branches, professional members. We all kind of come together. I've been chair now for about 6 months. I was vice chair before that, and I've been on council for about 5 or so years. I've really got a lot of things out of it. It's a great chance to influence how the Institute works. If there's things that you think need to be changed, it's a really good body of people to work with. If that at all sounds of interest to you, get in contact, pop yourself forward. We need to have much wider group of people coming forward. Looking particularly at getting more people who are younger in, people from different sorts of careers, different areas, different sectors. So if any of that sounds interesting to me, get in contact with Charlie, get in contact with me on LinkedIn. Very happy to have a conversation, but do so fairly quickly as nominations shut next week. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. And also, look, if you're just interested, you want to learn about it, that's too, because we have council elections every year. Okay, every year. So this comes around every year. We elect people to council. So if you're interested, please reach out. But tonight's not about council. Tonight's about RITTech. So Elliot, thanks again for joining. I know you're dead busy. So thanks for that. We're now going to move on slightly later on the agenda, but that's all good content. So we're going to be joined now by Tony Pitchford. Tony is head of commercial partnerships at BCS Centre. For those that don't know, BCS has got its membership and its volunteering, which we are on the branch level, really. But Tony is a BCS staff member, and obviously there are other staff members, Tony's colleagues, and they actually do lots of the work to support us as members and the community and the other good things that the BCS does. So Tony's going to give us now an overview of the current, and I think just about to slightly change RITTech process, which is coming out very, very soon. Okay, so thank you very much, Tony. If you've got any slides, I think we might have to make you co-host to share.
Let's see what we can do first, and we'll see when they are. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Disabled. Yeah, my screen sharing is disabled. So if you could change it, that would be perfect, Charlie. Thank you.
Just made you a co-host, okay?
Star. Thank you so much.
Try that now.
Let me see. I'm going to share a full screen from there, and hopefully you'll be able to see. If you just give me a wave in the room and let me know that I can. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Looks like it's working.
We've certainly got that in Staffordshire. Have you guys got that in Shropshire? Okay.
Perfect. Let me just move things around so I'm not kind of craning my neck while I'm presenting. It's never a pleasant experience. Thank you, everyone, and really, really delighted to be joining you tonight. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm about 195 miles to the northeast of you, so it was a bit too much for me to commute after a full day at work, unfortunately. But maybe next time. I'm not sure how to follow the two presenters before that. We've seen AI generate a Christmas naughty list. That scares me slightly. I wonder if Santa's had kind of ChatGPT a little bit longer than we have. And we've heard about what's happening, the kind of way that RITTech has influenced and helped people progress with their careers. I think the key for me here is that there is a big question now in God. I feel awful saying this, and I will apologize in advance, but we're already starting to read articles where this is being talked about as the fifth industrial revolution. Now, the fourth one only started around 2010, 2008. So, these things are coming thick and fast now. But how on earth do you manage your career and your progression and demonstrate your competency when things are moving quite that quickly? I think RITTech and a demonstration of, an illustration of professional competency is one of those things that will stand you in very good stead. I just want to say as well that Jared, he did that amazing map, and I may ask Jared if I can steal that kind of mapping the professional competencies against a kind of really deep understanding of what AI does and what its capabilities are, and where the human is still absolutely essential in the mix. And I think that professional competency, a deep understanding of code, of ethical frameworks, of essential skills, those are the hallmarks of what BCS wants to achieve. We want to demonstrate and develop ethical, inclusive, competent professionals across the board. And I think what Jared presented there illustrates exactly why that is needed. So I've got a few minutes here just to talk to you about RITTech and where it is and what's happening, and a couple of the changes that are coming through. I don't think there you go. Can I move that? There you go. And I think I'm conscious that I'm between you and sausage rolls, which is never a good place to be, especially at this time of the year and after a long evening. So I'll try and keep it mercifully brief for you. There is a video on this slide. I will share the slides with Charlie afterwards, and I'm happy for him to circulate that. I won't play the video because hopefully you all know BCS and what we're about and what we're doing. What we're changing to is a model where apprentices who are currently on program have to opt in and pay a small nominal fee. Sometimes their training providers will pay a small fee. Sometimes their employers will cover the cost. Sometimes they'll kind of pay the £25, and they can apply to become associate members of BCS while they are on program as apprentices. On completion of their endpoint assessment, they then pay again a kind of renewal fee plus an additional £5, and that pay £30, and that gets them their MBCS, their full membership. And because they have completed their apprenticeship, and then we have mapped the content of the apprenticeship to the Sophia Plus standards, we can validate using their unique learner reference numbers and their completion details that they've completed their apprenticeship program, and we then validate them as straight onto RITTech. What we're moving to is a more streamlined model. And just to give you some context, this is part of a broader restructure of BCS membership and BCS products that has been going on all through this year and will continue into next year. Elliot, just now, who joined us, asked, or to kind of expressed his hope for BCS to do more with RITTech in the future. I'll give you a quick teaser on this. We were hoping for an announcement as part of the budget to talk about the role of professional recognition in government departments and professional recognition in the way that the government goes about building, developing, or purchasing AI-driven systems. That has been kind of pushed back. I think Rachel Reeves was a little bit busy just before the budget went out, so the announcement was kind of pushed back. But there will be a full announcement from DCIT early in the new year, and I think you'll be very pleased to see what's coming through from that. Obviously, we can't give details away, but keep an eye out for that. There will be some news coming through, which is very exciting, and which, hopefully BCS will play a very significant role as part and parcel of that announcement coming through. So this is a really good time to be talking about professional recognition, not just recognition of your competence, but a kind of public recognition and validation of your professional competency in the workplace. So more to follow next year on that. I'll just skip through that to make sure we don't get the video. Again, we've talked about this already tonight, so try not to bore you too much with what RITTech is, the Register of IT Technicians, but that piece at the bottom there on the bottom left-hand corner, what does it do? It confirms your professional competency, and it is a public register. I was talking to someone, in my day job, I should just explain, in my day job at BCS, up until recently, I've worked with some of our biggest training providers to help them build and develop their apprenticeship programs, or to build and develop their BCS professional certificate training courses. I've spent about 20 years in training and development, working with clients on behalf of the training providers to help develop these programs. And somebody asked me about, well, what is the value of chartered status? Why would you go down the route of going on to RITTech or chartered status? And I've used this analogy a few times. If you drive to work every morning, for a couple of years, you follow the same commute, and every day you drive over a bridge, over a river using the same bridge. And one day you come to cross the bridge, and there is a flashing neon sign that's appeared overnight that says, "Public notice: this bridge has not been signed off by a chartered engineer." How comfortable are you driving over that bridge every day? Or would you start to take the longer route? As a consultant, how comfortable would you be if you started working with a client, and when you visited company's house, you looked at their profile on company's house and saw a notice to say, "Just to confirm, these accounts were not signed off by a chartered engineer, a chartered accountant." It is about trust, and it's about building trust. And confirming this publicly, as Elliot just articulated brilliantly, this is about demonstrating not just to your colleagues and to your peers, but about to your potential customers, about who you are and what you do, and the fact that you've signed up to this ethical code of conduct, and you can demonstrate your professional competency, and that is renewed on an ongoing basis. So it's a long-term commitment. And the earlier we can talk about this in people's careers, the better. The earlier we can get people into the chartered route, into a kind of professional register, the more kudos it gives them throughout their career, the more support we can put in place, but the more support we can also kind of you put in place to develop them in their careers further. So we do try and get this in as early as possible, which is one of the reasons that RITTech has been kind of not pushed, but it's been we try to encourage as many apprentices and graduates to take on RITTech as possible, because the sooner you can get onto that professional register, the sooner you see the benefits of it and the longer those benefits last for you. Now, this is the kind of the big piece. The shift from next year will be that anybody who has completed a BCS, an apprenticeship and has been assessed by BCS will automatically be given full MBCS membership and registration onto RITTech. And that's at level 3 or above. I'll come on to that in just a second. So it's a broad range of apprenticeships. And we've built the workflow internally at BCS offices to make sure that the registrations that we see coming through will translate into full registrations and membership. There are providers and colleges that may choose to use other awarding bodies, so city and guilds and the like, also offer tech and digital assessment. So I've heard anyway. I mean, we try not to talk about it too much. If the apprenticeship that you're on is not assessed by BCS, if it's assessed by another third party, you will still be required to follow the current model, which is either an experiential application or an application to join as an AMBCS through your apprenticeship. So there'll still be a nominal fee in place for those who are not registered with BCS. But one of the benefits of working with BCS is that this will all be automated, and it's included in the kind of offering that we give to training providers, employers that we're working with across our apprenticeship programs. If you are curious, there's a model here that we've put together which shows you the apprenticeship standards across the board that BCS is currently able to assess. Some of them may change next year. For example, the device repair technician at level 3. We have the approval to offer it. We are waiting for our first apprentices to come through, but there are only around 5 or 6 apprentices registered across the whole of England on that particular standard. It's not really something that is going to set the world on fire. And so we have decided that we will be retiring that in 2026. There's a huge cost to developing and maintaining an apprenticeship standard under Ofqual's rules and regulations, and it is not a good use of BCS resources, time and money to keep and maintain an apprenticeship standard in when the numbers are so low. So there will be some standards that will change on this model in 2026, but we're working with the training providers, colleges, employers and universities that deliver these apprenticeship standards to manage that effectively. What we'll never do is we'll never retire a standard if we're the only option out there. So if somebody is registered against it, but there is no other option for them, then we'll keep it running. So we'll never disadvantage an apprentice. But you can see there, you've got the levels of apprenticeships and how they work, and you've got the degree apprenticeships there on which BCS does not assess the degree apprenticeships, so that they are assessed by the universities themselves, but they are mapped against the RITTech standard, and you can still apply through the kind of current route to get onto the register if you're on a degree apprenticeship in that way. Again, if I share the slides, you can see the little arrow at the bottom of the screen there. You'll be able to follow that to find out more about the apprenticeships that BCS offers, and just have a quick look if you need any more information on there. And again, I don't think I'll dwell on this too much. It's kind of we've already heard from much better speakers than I the value of RITTech, what it gives them, and what the benefits are. As I mentioned, the intent is always that we're going to help and support those apprentices that have come through BCS. I should just mention, and to clarify, because it was something that came up in a presentation I did for apprentices a couple of weeks ago, there are apprentices out there that have withdrawn from their program. So they were registered with BCS, but for whatever reason, after 12 months or whatever, they've removed themselves from their apprenticeship, and they were asking whether they could still kind of become get onto RITTech under this model. it will be on successful completion rather than actually just being an apprenticeship, being an apprentice. So when we talk about the experiential route, you'll kind of understand a little bit more. But the application process is a demonstration of competency in the workplace. If BCS has seen you as a part of your endpoint assessment, we've seen your portfolio of work, we've interviewed you, we've carried out scenario demonstrations, or we've read project reports, we've kind of delivered and assessed knowledge tests. We have got some fairly robust set of evidence to say that you are occupationally competent. But we don't have that if you haven't completed your apprenticeship. So it would be the experiential route unless you have fully completed and passed and have a certificate for your apprenticeship. I think some of this was actually on Jared's presentation earlier on. I thought it might be a good idea just briefly to talk about the required competencies if you're going through the experiential route. Because I think it's useful to understand a little bit about what it is that BCS is looking for and what we think makes a good application. So let me just shift this over if it will move. Okay, no, not that one. So this is live on our site at the moment, and again, apologies for presenting a live website. No one likes seeing scrolling text on a site, do you? But I'm afraid that's what you get. That's what you get. In terms of the assessment criteria, you can see what's on there and how it's broken down. The link again is in the slide deck, so it can take you straight through there. You've got the skills and attributes, but really the kind of criteria that you're going to be assessed against if you're going through the experiential route, autonomy, influence, complexity, etc. Those are knowledge, skills, and behaviors, as Jared kind of pointed out earlier on. These are the kind of things that we would pretty much expect to see out of every apprenticeship. And we have mapped the knowledge, the KSBs and the competencies that we assess against this criteria to ensure that there is a match. All of that is available on the BCS website. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. There is plenty of guidance available on how to complete the application form itself. All of that is available online and through My BCS. And we do run regular workshops for those people considering applying to support your application. We do that through our RITTech, and also for those people who are looking to apply for CITP, so they're taking on the next step. Or even if you want to become a BCS fellow, there are workshops and guidance documents available through My BCS to help and support your application. Like I said, with an RITTech application for an apprenticeship, that's just going to be automated. We've seen enough to know that you are competent. With an experiential route, there's a little bit more to it than that. On successful completion, you may be aware that you will need to revalidate your status every 3 years. That will need CPD evidence. So, what additional learning have you completed in the workplace? What certificates have you achieved? What qualifications have you gone on to? So it's a way of driving and encouraging that you're maintaining your knowledge, not just to say that you can keep doing the job that you're doing, but that you are current in your knowledge and in your competency in the workplace. So that's RITTech from there. I've put the link again on the slide deck there. You are more than welcome to connect with me online. I do tend to talk an awful lot about digital skills and apprenticeships. So if I haven't bored you to tears tonight, if there's something there that you think is of interest, please do connect with me. I'm more than happy to kind of chat with you on LinkedIn. If you want to have a chat with me about some of the qualifications or apprenticeship programs that BCS offers, again, happy to do so. And part of my role is to engage with employers, our community, and the training providers, colleges and universities that we work with on skills projects. So please do, kind of bear us in mind if you are developing or looking at the skills and competencies within your own organizations and you want to reach out and get in touch. I think that's everything from me, Charlie. Is there any? I think we're moving on to any questions before you hit the sausage rolls. But is there anything else that you want me to run through from there?
Well, firstly, just a round of applause. Thank you very much, Jeff. Yeah, so just in terms of questions then, I mean, probably just as I'm talking, have we any questions in the room here? Any questions here? Of any of the speakers? Elliot's gone, but we've got Jared, who's obviously still at the Shropshire branch. We've got Craig, who's in the room here. We've got Tony, who's online. So anybody got any questions from in the room here?
About which session? About the first session, or about the?
Whichever, really. Just general questions, because we had 3 sessions today. Okay, we had Jared talking about his career. Well, probably that's kind of 4. Jared talking about his career. Jared talking about AI ethics. Craig talking about his career. Elliot popped in to say hello, but he's gone now. And then we've got Tony, who's talked about the application process. So any questions on any of those topics, please feel free to ask here, and then we'll move across to the Shropshire branch so that they can ask any questions there. But you don't have to ask questions; it's not compulsory. But I just thought, as I was talking,
I think one thing from me about the ethics side is that I think it's right. You know what Jared was saying about at cultural level, starting at the base. The developers, etc. That's right. But the example that he was talking about was really about small scale, small point solutions, and which is where everything starts. But what we're really talking about from an enterprise perspective is kind of a volume of velocity and veracity of models of solutions that are out there. And the challenge for a typical CIO, a typical organization from an enterprise perspective is how do you manage that from an enterprise level? Because it's okay doing it at one point, but from an enterprise, you wanted to look at you wanted to look at it as a whole. So I think Jared mentioned one thing about, it's that weakest link in the chain, isn't it? Where it only takes one small thing to be wrong. But managing that from an enterprise perspective is really, really difficult. So I'd like Jared's thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you. Jared, did you pick up that question okay? Hello, Jared?
I think I put him to sleep with the length of my question.
Maybe.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank you, Jared.
Sorry. Yes. So the point you made is very true. All it takes is the weakest link in terms of the model making one mistake, and then the whole company is held accountable for that mistake, which is very much why we are of the opinion that if you've got an ethical and competent engineer working on that system, you can help lessen those errors from happening. Because it's one thing to sort of point all of your data at a large language model that can do all these weird and wonderful things, but if you haven't considered all the risks, then there's always that small chance. And it's more important now than ever, really, because we at the start of this new industrial age of AI being the new commodity. And there seems to be an AI label on everything these days, and it's something that we need to take control of, or it'll take control of us. So yeah, that would be my comment on that.
I think in most ways he's right, looking at it from the starting point, but from someone who's higher up, if you've got, say, 10,000 models, 10,000 solutions all there, add other solutions as well, which are looking at data in multiple points. And you may have a team of, 5,000 developers all working on this. It becomes a bit of a challenge.
I guess the problem always is, though, it's where you start from. So
it's down from, but if it's a bit like when someone writes some code, that may have been written 6, 10, 12 years ago. It's doing what it needs to until it stops working. Then you think, well, what changed? It might be the data, but the difference is that with AI, particularly with your models and your data, etc., it's a moving target. It's an evolving model as more data goes into it. It's not as static as a standard piece of code. I know code changes because the data changes and that causes things to break, but it's a lot more subtle with an AI model.
I think what Jared was talking about and is that the basics don't change. So back in the day, and I'm quite an old IT chap now, but we were always taught garbage in, garbage out, and we were always taught just turning the handle faster doesn't mean to say you're going to get more stuff. You just might get more rubbish, and I think that's kind of where we are at the moment with AI. And I think this all comes back, in my opinion, anyway. It all comes back down to the quality of your data and the quality of your personnel that you've got doing it, which was Jared's point, really. And you've got to assess that and say, well, who have I got looking at these particular applications? And maybe there's from a corporate perspective, maybe there is some kind of a scoring. So certainly within manufacturing, there's something called FMEA, fee and mode effect analysis. It's like a risk, and there's also the risk profiling, and so maybe that's the approach to risk profile each of these elements of your systems to say, well, which are more susceptible or not, and then that allows you to focus your resources to where you go.
The scale is such though that, or it will be, that you won't be able to manage it by, you might have standards or whatever that can look after it. The scale will cause problems where you'll have to have some. I hate to say it, probably some AI solution helping you monitor all this kind of stuff.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, today, for instance, you can ask an AI model to respond in the form of or in the language of a certain persona. So, if you've got some really strong roles here, you could say, well, look, please develop this in line with my document, which I'm going to give you, right?
Or in your company style, or
whatever. Exactly. So I think there are answers, but like all things, the devil's always in that detail.
It's just a scale, a scale of the volume, and etc.
Any more questions in the room here before we move online and back to Shropshire? Because I think Kirsten, you're going to handle the online questions. I think, yeah. Anybody else in the Stoke-on-Trent Staffordshire branch want to ask a question yet?
Yeah, I have a question.
You go ahead.
I have a question for him. Sorry, I forgot about it. I'm very bad at the names, So
Craig.
Yeah. So you talk about the enterprise technology, masters in enterprise and technology, right? So I'm also working as a technical solution architect, internship and assist, which is like an IBM ecosystem. So I wanted to know, like, what kind of enterprise software you have used. Can you give some idea about your projects in enterprise so that it can get inspiration for us to go
This is
ahead?
why I always put Masters of Enterprise and in brackets technology at the end of it, because it's a bit of a misleading title of my degree. It was like my master's, sorry, it was like and setting up businesses and technology, as opposed to like enterprise solution architecture, if you follow me. I think that's what you're aiming at, aren't you?
Yeah. So what kind of I have been to the mainframe also, and they use the particular kind of software where they really dive in the enterprise things. So what is your Steam projects, please?
Oh, projects I've worked on. Yeah. I've worked on projects with PNC is a massive mainframe. I think it's IBM collections. We've worked on that. Largely I've worked on workforce management systems and everything in between, really. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I think we're probably about done for now. We've still got Trent Staffordshire with questions. So we're going to hand back to the guys in Shropshire. So Kirsten or Jared, I don't know if you want to take the online questions first or questions in the room, but I'll leave that to you guys.
Hello? I don't know if can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're hearing you okay, yeah.
Don't know if they can hear me.
Can you hear us okay?
It looks like it. The lights.
I think our camera's gone off, I think. I don't know what's happened there.
Is it switched on now? Is it off?
Start my video. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
Right. Okay.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good.
Okay, great. It was just a bit in the response to the question about looking at how you want these AI models to be able to be rolled out on scale. And I think it's really about coming back to understanding, there's lots of discussions around, stuff like AI strategy. I don't really buy myself into an AI strategy working for a large organization. I think you have a technology strategy, you have a business strategy, and AI and how you want to implement that is part of governance frameworks that need to be built up over time. And for example, within large organizations, the first thing that you should be seeing in that space that helps you to manage these AI models at scale is really about making sure that you've actually built out all of the relevant principles from an architectural perspective. One of the things, for example, that I was dealing with today was specifically, we are talking about digital citizenship, really key topic when it comes to AI and utilizing and rolling out AI within organizations. So within that, for example, we were looking at what are the specific architectural principles, what are the specific IT risk controls that we need to make sure are adhered to, looking at, and so that means our entire framework from an IT CRM perspective has had to be updated to ensure that you could think about how you're going to handle things like this, including AI specifically. And little things within those within the actual policy document looks at stuff like how will someone go about requesting use of specific tools? How would we look at making sure that they can be upskilled? How will we look at making sure that it can be deployed? How do we manage stuff like how do we differentiate between when something is actually done from a POC perspective until it actually meets a certain standard? How do we ensure it gets approved from a governance perspective and then rolled out? So there's a whole, so I always think that when you're looking at these things, a lot of people see kind of the sexy technology as the outcome. And what they don't necessarily recognize is all of the investment that needs to go into actually making sure you've built out all the right kinds of things at a foundational level. So even if you just look at something that we talk about really commonly within IT is about the need for an asset register, one of the things that is very much being advocated for when it comes to utilizing machine learning and AI tools is that you actually need to have a really comprehensive asset register that not only looks at being able to determine what are the specific agents, but really also looking at what is the specific rules and transparency. And then obviously on top of that, it's also about understanding the technology. So if you, for example, have an Azure technology stack, you're going to have specific kinds of tooling that you will utilize to manage your AI agents within that stack. If it's AWS, if it's all of these things. So I think it always comes back to that point of thinking that what I see happening in the industry is that we are definitely moving towards this need for greater levels of certification, that individuals coming out of and into technology roles are not only just, coming out and doing, knowing how to do the coding. They really need to be able to apply their thinking in so many different elements to now bring this together. And that's why I do also advocate for what Jared's saying, but just about, thinking about it more broadly, like you were saying, is that when you look at this from an enterprise perspective, it's not just about the certification, but it is a good baseline to at least make sure that all of these other elements that now need to start to come together in the right way. And they're not just coming together in the mind of an enterprise architect, it's coming together across the entire skills base of the organization. Hope that helps.
I agree with what you say there. And it all moves into something which we've seen develop, and certainly the last 10 years, which are kind of what I call policy-driven architectures, particularly when you're looking at factories and what have you that are producing code or wherever. Everything's driven by policies, and depending on what that use case is, there'll be a different policy for that. So But I totally agree with you on that.
Okay, so I would just like to sort of add to Lauren's point about the need for sort of certifications. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot about professional certifications or individual certifications, but I think also it's the importance of sort of enterprise security certifications. And as some of you might know me, I'm pretty obsessed about ISO 27001, and Jared's smiling away there in the corner. And, you know, so really, these are fantastic frameworks for companies that sort of determine, you know, or to progress, you know, what is actually right and secure. And sometimes I ask myself with AI, is actually AI, you know, particularly from a data processing perspective, a component of a data processing entity, if you like, that in a sense we should be responsible for as much as we're something that's non-AI that might be slightly powerful. We still have a responsibility for it, testing that it's actually doing what it should be doing and all the rest of it. And AI happens to be another type of data processing entity that we need to ensure is designed ethically, is tested, and is producing something that is, you know, quality upfront and quality output. So yeah, so I think there's some interesting questions about enterprise frameworks in the sense to actually guide how these technologies are kept, particularly AI, secure. Right. Has anybody got any other questions or comments from the room in Shropshire? Yeah, I'm going to bring the microphone round. It is on, so I'll bring the.
Hello. My name is Pete. I'm an employer of several people that develop software on the cloud and AWS partners. Just a little bit about me. I'm interested from the point of view that obviously AI is an incredibly fast rate of pace of innovation and change and flux. And we're in a position where the Americans and the Chinese are absolutely pushing ahead, building bigger systems, and we have pretty much no control other than using the systems or deciding which systems to use. We either homebrew them or use what they're building, and these massive behemoths are coming out with technologies which, in terms of innovation, they are ignoring all the guardrails, all of these procedures, all of these things, compliance, everything we've talked about here in this room today. It feels like we're getting left behind, and it's the same for crypto technology, for example. There's a lot of amazing stuff coming out of the States, and they are no doubt going to be leaders in that industry because we have got zero compliance in this country in terms of regulation, or we're not pushing forward with these technologies. And I fear in the UK, or it's a question, anyone that's interested in answering it, are we holding ourselves back in terms of innovation? I think we all recognize as professionals the importance of guardrails, the importance of getting things right. But are we just going to get beaten down by these other countries that don't care? And I think that might be an interesting debate to open up with. Not that we've got time because we want to eat sausage rolls, but it's just a thought.
I think it's a very important thought to ponder on that as commercial entities seek to produce ever more powerful models, etc. Right. Any other comments from the floor here? For a hand back. Okay. So thank you very much to the folks who commented. That's very useful. So come back.
I think
Right.
just Jared, there was one question from Tony.
Yes.
Online. And if you spotted that, did you?
Yes. So have I encountered any ethical dilemmas for example, bias or safety, etc., or issues in the workplace? How often do developers discuss these or flag these considerations in practice? Fortunately enough, not really. So the company I work for is a small company. We've got about a handful of developers, but we are an ISO 27001 certified company. So security and ethics is what we eat, live, and breathe. So in terms of new features or any sort of functionality we look at putting out for users, it's always the first thought we have before we even start any sort of form of implementation. When we look to implement AI in our system, we definitely didn't want any bias or safety concerns. So what we ended up doing was, instead of having client data being fed to the model, we trained models or proprietary models from scratch on strictly domain data. So it takes into account a person's sort of circumstance, and then it'll predict the best financial product, but it doesn't read anything about the client. It strictly looks at, like we've said, the behavioral features. So nothing that'll identify a client or make a decision on that client's data. It's more domain driven. So in that way, we use it to augment our workflow for our app and our features, but we don't use it to sort of ever make a decision or a final sign off on any sort of process. So we credit that to our sort of corporate culture and our ethical beliefs really as a team. So luckily we've not had any issues.
Hi, it's Kirsten here. So I just want to ask Jared a question, actually. So you said you were obviously following the ISO 27001 management system. Have you looked at the ISO 42001 AI management system?
In short, yes, looked at it. In terms of getting that accreditation, it's for powers higher up than me. But it's good to see that there is indeed a framework that we can start working towards. What is it, 42,001. I believe for the purposes of at my day job with our software as a SaaS product in the financial services, the ISO 27001 has been more important to have than an AI certification because our product isn't strictly AI. But I think as more features become available in the app and as we progress, I definitely think it is something we could look at, and it would definitely tie in nicely with the RITTech accreditation and the evidence you have to provide for that. So yeah, one to consider, definitely.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other questions? If not, I will hand back over to Ed.
Just to add on that, Kirsten, for those that are in the room are interested, we do have quite a few BCS members that sit on the panels that actually decide, describe, and create these standards. So, Adam Leon Smith, for instance, is involved in quite a bit of that, and we also have a BCS specialist group in AI. So if that's something of any interest, then please reach out. As a BCS member, you can connect with the AI specialist group as well. So there's quite a lot of support out there for BCS members if they wish. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I'm just going to close out. Well, I'm going to let you close out first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, look, I mean, the first thing is I want to say a big thank you to everyone that showed up this evening. This was a concept that I created thinking, wouldn't it be good? Our branches run what's been termed branch buddy events, where we've got together as members and so on to share experiences and discuss registration, discuss standards, discuss things, but to learn from each other, really. This was an idea, and when I went across to see the guys in Shropshire, I raised this, and they thought, yeah, it's a really good idea. So I want to thank you guys a lot because you've made this happen, really. You've really come to this. And I mean, in some respects, it's easy for us because we've got a room in Staffordshire University that's got all the gear. We just rock up and turn it on. You've done some fantastic stuff there. It's been actually excellent quality in terms of the audio and the visual. So just a big thank you to you guys in Shropshire for your support to take this forward. The hope is that what we'll do is we'll then be able to take this, learn from it. Any comments, please shout back, and then take some of this actually into the colleges. Okay, to talk directly to the students, the young students, and see if there are any detailed questions and support. Big thank you to Craig, obviously, from our branch for speaking, and to Elliot, and also to Tony from the BCS staff to come along and support us. But a big thank you to all for attending this evening. Thank you very much.
Charlie, don't disappear yet. You still there?
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I would just like to say thank you very much to Charlie and his team on behalf of BCS Shropshire. This was a bit of a journey. So folks here, thank you very much for sort of bearing with us a little bit. I think, this is in software parlance version 1. And we're probably going on an agile journey, aren't we?
I think so.
We'll create a few stories and push the job forward. But I would just like to say also, as I said at the beginning of the night, it's really fantastic to be here at Shrewsbury College. And because I know that Shrewsbury College do some outstanding work with all the sort of courses that they're doing, and they're really pushing out sort of on the IT side. And with Kirsten here doing such an amazing job, with that, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. With some of the local companies here. We would like to come in and sort of share some of our knowledge of what's actually going on and what we're doing, and talk to students, etc. I think it's really, really important. So thank you, Kirsten, for hosting us so well at Shrewsbury College. It's been fantastic. So that, I believe, concludes the online experience. Thank you for all those that have stayed with us online.